Starting in quarantine without an end in sight, we're bringing to you advice and good conversation from one teenager to another. This is Sonica and Chelsea with Armbridge, a podcast we hope to be informative and reflective of the everyday world around us. Thank you for joining us today. It is May something, 19th.
19th.
Yes. Last week we talked about relationships and how they're related to the media, eventually going on a tangent about our relationships with our friends because we sort of lack experience in that field. This week, as suggested by one of our listeners, we are talking about how we perceive ourselves in relation to others.
Yay!
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. All right, as you can see, we're decked out in our lovely graduation gear. Yay!
If you're watching on YouTube.
Yes, if y'all are on YouTube.
If not, we are wearing some lovely red gowns right now.
Yes. We're doing the most, but I really feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so to start off, our topic was suggested by it was sort of indirectly.
Maybe we should say why we're wearing the gowns. When this episode goes up,
sure.
Yes. When this episode goes up, it will be our last week of high school and we'll be graduating the next weekend. And since this is our last solo segment before graduation, we thought we'd celebrate by dressing up.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very exciting time. Yeah, to start off, this week's topic was suggested by someone we know. Did she actually suggest it directly, or was it just
it came up in conversation, and then she was like, this would be a good topic for y'all, and I was like, I agree.
So thank you to her if you're listening right now. It's she basically brought up the point that from what I saw in your text, that when you're around other people, you tend to change parts about yourself, whether that be unintentionally or intentionally. So a lot of the responses I got were kind of simple things like my humor or the way I talk, or even things like posture. So were yours kind of the same, or?
Mine were actually pretty similar, yeah. I got a couple where it's I got individually DM'd and they were like, okay, so I couldn't fit my response in the little prompt box, but they gave paragraphs so we could use those later because I thought
those are great.
Those are good, yeah. I think we can kind of start off where the conversation started from, or how we got the idea to do this. So as we said, one of my friends, we were just talking, and she was talking about how because of quarantine and because none of us are going to school, she's been caring a lot less about her appearance, and she's not been trying to, I guess, impress anyone, or not impress anyone per se, but she hasn't been dressing up. And she hasn't felt the need to be fancier or whatever while going outside. Right. And I thought, yeah, that's totally valid. There's a lot of people who are like that right now, where they're like, finally, my skin can breathe and I don't have to wear makeup and I can just sit in sweatpants all day. But it was interesting because I was like, wait, actually, I'm quite the opposite. In school, I like dressing up. I think it just makes me feel more awake. It makes me feel better about myself. When I look in the mirror and I see myself looking fancy, I'm like, wow, who is she?
Oh.
But because of school, or in general, when I'd have more human interaction, I kind of felt the need to dress down a little bit more, if that makes sense. Because showing up to school in a face full of makeup and a really nice outfit,
that's so difficult.
I respect people with that kind of confidence. Yeah, so I usually just kind of showed up in t-shirt and jeans, and I'd be too tired to actually care. And so that kind of led to the conversation where I was like, okay, how much do I depend on others to determine how I outwardly act or how I present myself? And that led to this week's topic. So what are your thoughts, Jesse?
I guess for me, I don't personally go out with friends a lot on weekends and things like that. Usually because I'm busy and just because some of my friends are really far away. So most of the time when I dress up and stuff like that, or I try to wear something fashionable, it's at school, because I think it's a really good way to express
your
yourself.
School fashion is so cute, by the way. I love your outfits.
Thank you. But yeah, I don't think I've ever done it to try to impress somebody, but I do it like I guess and to sort of validate myself. Um, but if anything, I feel like after hearing about the topic, I've sort of been the opposite. Like I don't know if it's just something that's been going on for a while. Like for me, it's just trying to get back into I guess like getting fit and stuff like that. So if anything, like I've been more conscious on myself lately. It's sort of the opposite for me. But yeah, I guess that's sort of how I've approached the topic. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of think that because you have time for yourself or time with yourself, you have more of an opportunity to kind of criticize yourself or like
I guess it's more of like we're being reflective, but like for a while, um, ever since like I feel like this came up at some point, but ever since I quit swimming, like I started worrying like I haven't been that fit since that time, and like
mm-hmm.
also like my body has changed in a way just because it's been so long. So it's still something I'm sort of grappling with, but it's not so much like it's just like oh I wish I could be in that state of mind right now because it's still something that I feel sad about quitting, but it's like something that's been going on. So it's not necessarily uh, caused by quarantine, but part of me criticizing myself, I guess physically, is like um, quarantine kind of factors into that because I'm just alone and I'm not out being
Mm-hmm.
distracted. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I could see that, yeah. I think for me it's more from like a personality or like character sense. Like as you said, school generally tends to keep you busy, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think now that like I'm at home, I can work on these side projects I've been putting off because of academics and whatnot, right? But it's also making me realize like, wow, I am really lazy. Like I just become even more critical of myself because I'm in that mindset where it's like I have to constantly be working or constantly be doing something, or if I'm not, I'm like unproductive or I'm not using this time wisely. And then the other side of my brain is like, Sonika, relax. This is like the one time you get to like chill.
Yeah.
So it's for me, it's more between those two where it's like I feel I become more critical of myself because I'm not always doing something.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, be confident in yourself. We're both doing
Yeah.
great. Nobody's perfect. That's okay. And you are beautiful, and so am I. And so are
So
y'all that are listening.
yeah.
We're gonna go listen to a Lizzo song after this. You know what?
Yes, for sure. I need to put together like a power playlist. I don't have
I
one.
have one on Spotify. I have like this one, and it's just like a bunch of like women and like empowering songs or like hype songs. It's
I
great.
really need to know,
I'll be in
especially.
the car and I'm just like, anyways,
Yeah.
I'll be
Anyway.
sitting in the car and then I'll have like the playlist playing, and every like 5 minutes I'll just be vibing, and everyone at every stoplight just watching me. I'm sitting here
Right.
like, my hair toss, check my nails, baby, how you feel?
That like this was really bad, but my friend Gabby, who was my guest 2 weeks ago,
Mhm.
um, or yeah, 2 weeks ago, she like I was I was outside of CVS like in the passenger seat with like my mom, and she was picking up like her medicine or something, and like when she left, I turned on the radio and there was like a song that I really liked, so I was like jamming out in there by myself. But then it turns out the car next to me was my friend Gabby's car because
Oh no.
you couldn't see through the windows, right? Because it was
Oh
like a really,
no.
I don't know what kind of car it was, but it was like a pretty dark tinted
Tinted.
car. And it was like,
Uh-huh.
it was like after my swim practice or something. And I remember she waited like a whole year to tell me this. She was like, I saw you outside of that CVS. And I was like, oh my God.
Why?
I mean, I'd rather it be someone as close to me as her rather than like someone I just barely know from school. But yeah, that's just something I
Oh,
remember.
if it's
And
barely knowing from school, yeah, that's awkward. If it's a stranger, I
well,
don't care. Because, like, what are they gonna do? They're gonna go
yeah,
home, tell their daughter, "Hey, I saw this weird girl next to me at a stoplight. She was
just
singing."
jamming out at a CVS.
Oh, speaking of which, just like 2 days ago, there was this car. I forgot where it was, but I don't know. there was a car and it was taking a turn, and like as it passed us, you can like audibly hear the lady inside of it singing her lungs out. Like not even the
Oh,
radio, not even the music. Homegirl was just yelling.
we loved her
Like
for that.
she was belting to a song, and I was like, man, is that what I sound like to everyone else?
Congratulations, man.
It's terrible. It's so embarrassing. But
That's like the self-confidence you must have for that. You know
see,
what I
the
mean?
the trick is not being self-aware.
Oh, that's
I
true.
wouldn't know my voice carries to the outside of the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we both overthink, so that would be like something really hard. Just belt out.
Just belt, just do it. Who's gonna judge you?
Yeah, I guess. Detachment. We're just gonna
Yes.
detach ourselves from thinking. But yeah, anyway, like I guess since we sort of dished out our takes on the topic, like were there any responses to you that like you sort of related to or
Yes. Okay, so the first one I wanted to share was the really, really long one. That
oh
one I pretty much like completely related to. It was
yeah, sure.
my thoughts exactly, but like in a paragraph from someone else. So that was pretty cool. Um, so basically, what they said is, I don't know why it took me so long to think of this, but I think probably behavior, like I changed the way I talk around different people to match their vibe, and also being more afraid to show my true feelings. She was saying that she pretends to not be upset or, over stuff, or having like a filter, so she doesn't hurt people's feelings, and
Oh,
she tends to undermine her own emotions, so it's easier to like get along with the people around her. She also
so
said, like, related to that, she doesn't really go to a lot of, there's like a few people she designates to talk to about her problems,
mm,
but she prefers having the role of like having people come to her for comfort rather than
mm,
constantly being the one
mm.
expressing herself. And I felt that. Like, I have maybe 4 people that I would trust with my problems, you being one of them. Thank you.
Oh, yay.
But I'll share it with them, and then with everyone else, I'm just kind of like this little cloud of sunshine. And so I totally get that. Like, I think, do you want me to give my long response first, or do you want to
Oh no, yeah,
respond?
dude. This is what the
Okay,
podcast is for.
it's rambling. Okay, so I
Yeah,
think to an extent it is normal to like change how you act in front of other people.
yeah,
Otherwise, it, I wouldn't get along with like anyone, to be
yeah.
honest. Um, like yeah, I mean, depending on the people you're around, you change the way you act a little bit just to match the vibes better, right? But I think it gets unhealthy when you feel like you're sacrificing yourself. Like, I can't act completely like myself in front of one person because there's different facets of my personality, right? And depending on who I'm around, I'll unlock, per se,
Yeah, yeah.
different parts that I
Yeah,
feel fit for that situation. So I think that's normal. And I know a lot of people said that, where they're like, I act differently around different people. Well, yeah, we all do. We all kind of have to, right?
right,
But
yeah.
it becomes, as I said, it becomes unhealthy when you feel like you're sacrificing yourself, or however you're presenting yourself outwardly is not genuine to who you are. Like, it's not any of the parts that you could unlock, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. Um, because I guess like no one's like a whole person. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like sometimes you get facets of your personality from other people or you bounce off ideas from other people. But like if you I guess at that point if I guess it's like emotionally draining to think that I guess you're draining yourself out. So it's like I don't know how to word this. Like I kind of understand what you're saying, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, like I've made friends with people that that I feel like I can be myself around. But then obviously like I think the biggest part of it for me is that I'm subconsciously worried about what people will think of me. So I have to change or subdue parts of my personality to sort of fit that
With the
because
situation.
expressions are so like important for me in a way. And it's
Yeah.
really hard to yeah, I mean, I guess like and also I guess the reason why you sort of subdue parts of your personality is also to like protect protect yourself because I think being sort of I guess what you would say like fake to someone that maybe you quote unquote fake to someone you don't like or maybe like trying to detach yourself from a person. Like it's also an important way to maintain, I guess, your integrity as a person as well.
I totally agree. I
Yeah.
think the easiest example to bring up about that is music taste. Like,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
we all know that my music taste is everywhere, and with most people, like, you don't really confine yourself to like one genre, right? But
yeah.
when I'm talking to people, you know, small talk, usually the first question that comes up is, "Oh, what music do you listen to?" Right? And I will curate my response depending on the situation. Nowadays, I just say everything, but like I know I used to like kind of bring up artists I think they would like,
Oh yeah,
if that makes sense. Or I'd start
yeah.
with the basic ones and then work my way into the more obscure niche people. But that's kind of like one analogy you can make, kind of like
Yeah,
when you share your music taste, you don't go straight to German hip hop. You work your way
yeah,
there.
for sure. It's like, yeah, it's such a huge but yeah, that's a I guess that makes sense in a way because when you meet someone like if you give too much away, in a way it's sort of like not really shameless. It's just like
It's just
something that
off-putting. Like if I were the recipient of that, I would
yeah,
also be kind of.
yeah. Is it, I don't know if it's like desperation or whatnot, but I knew this girl um who was in debate with me, and
Mm-hmm.
she had a pretty bad experience at one point in her life. Like, you know, it's not something that I would ever um condone her for or whatnot, but like every time that she would talk about it, it would be like a crutch sort of like, hi, I'm blank, and this happened to me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of hard because like when you have such an experience or something about you that you have to get off your chest, like I guess there are two ways of coping with it in terms of like opening up and showing your personality, and one of them can be sort of draining in the sense that like you're you're sort of expecting people to put up with your problems in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so like it's hard, but I think there are like two ways you can go about it. You can either kind of keep it to yourself and you know try to grow with that other person you're trying to open up to and be around, or it can be like that example where you sort of give away too much of yourself or the
Mm-hmm.
parts of yourself that you just want to like you know you know what I mean. Does this
No,
make sense?
I totally get what you mean, and
Okay.
I used to have that problem where, um, in my bad experience, when I was first like getting out of it, you start questioning like who do I turn to for this, or like who
Right.
do I tell that's willing to listen. So I a lot of times when I was still growing from it, like I would tell a lot of people who really didn't need to know. Like it was just unnecessary. And looking
Mhm.
back at it, I'm like, girl, why? But also like I understand where people like that are coming from, but I don't think it's the right thing to do, right? So it'd be like that sometimes.
About the other responses that I got, one of them was interestingly like I thought this was sort of neat, like your sense of humor, like what you can joke about with certain people.
Oh, yeah,
I
for
guess
sure.
it's kind of how I take it. That's kind of how I take it. Like, yeah, because I think I tend not to make a lot of jokes about like, I guess as an example, like about my like ethnicity. You know what I mean? Like only with like I mean people in my family and stuff, but um obviously like I try and sort of like, make relatable like jokes with people that I know that are of my ethnicity, or
Mhm.
I have a specific group of friends where we sort of had this like weird discussion about which one of our home countries was better
You
in middle school, and
mentioned
it was
it in
like a
your podcast. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it was so off the rails. It was really it was so dumb. The number of stories I have about how dumb it is insane. But like I think humor is also sort of it's also like an indirect way to show how comfortable you are around other people. Like I have friends that normally are pretty quiet and subdued, but like when we're in like debate or when we're together outside of school, like they go totally unhinged. So I think it's a nice way to see it. It's a nice thing
Yeah. To gauge how comfortable someone is. I totally get that.
to see.
Like, um, I need to stop. I have like a vocabulary of like three transition words or three responses, and I don't know how to string outside of those. Oh God. But No, I do see what you mean. Like, from personal experience, I'm the oldest one in my family in terms of both siblings and cousins. Also, like throughout my life, I've told you this, right? Like throughout my life, I've been the older sister figure for almost everyone, right? And so I think just last year, I started talking to, some kids that are going into college or some kids that are like older than me. Just because like I was naturally put in situations. Like I remember I took health and I made one of my first like senior friends. I also took a couple like I took a summer class and I became friends with some seniors there too. Now they're college students, but like they were seniors then because I was a junior. But I remember I was like so uncomfortable in that situation because I've never been the younger one in any kind of
Yeah.
social interaction. And so I really like held back on jokes and like, I just sat down, I looked prim and proper. I was like, okay, you can talk. I'm here to listen. Because I just never been in in a social dynamic like that. So it was, yeah, you're right. Jokes and like kind of just banter and being witty, that definitely comes with like being comfortable in a situation.
Mhm.
Mhm. As for like the ethnic jokes, that too, I agree with that too. Like, I don't, I don't make Indian people jokes in front of like non-Indian people because they
Yeah,
won't
yeah.
know how to receive it. And I like because
Oh,
the
yeah,
school we go to is pretty diverse. I often find myself in like situations where someone of a different ethnicity says a joke about their ethnicity or like, says something that's like relatable to them
yeah,
or to
yeah.
their ethnicity. And I'm just like, how do I receive this? Like,
Yeah.
am I allowed to laugh? Do I
Yeah,
just
like am I allowed
smile and
to?
nod?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't usually, as you said, I don't usually make those outside my little Indian
Those
circle.
are like a whole other beast, I guess. So, yeah, I guess anyway, like my initial question to you was like, has there ever been, because you mentioned social dynamics just a second ago. So I was like wondering, has there ever been like a social dynamic for you that like was hard for you to change for, I guess? And I was saying like in my case when I was in swimming, like there were different skill groups depending on how fast you were and your age and stuff like that. And when I moved up to the next skill group, I was like the youngest one there, and a lot of people were like from the same school. They had pretty much like grown up together in the past 3 or 4 years. And it was just like sort of a wall that no matter how
Mhm.
much I tried to change myself or get to know them, like I couldn't really get over. So in that case, like, has there ever been like a moment for you or?
I think it's kind of similar. I mean, different situation, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
same idea. When we go to India, I am not from there. Like I'm from there, but I haven't lived there, right? So a lot of like the mannerisms and just the bond that a lot of our family members have, I don't have the same bond with them because I
Mm,
haven't lived near them or I visit them like once every 5 years, right? And so I think for me, it's something I thought about a lot because the whole thing where it's like your cousins are like your second best friends and
oh
like
yeah, yeah,
they're your
yeah.
like go-to group and whatnot. I never
Uh-huh.
really had that because I have no family outside of like my mom, my dad, and my brother in the US, right? And so I never really see them. So I'm just naturally not close to them like that. And so for me, that's kind of like that's probably my hardest social dynamic to get used to because when we go, obviously, like when we meet up with cousins, they all kind of know each other, they're all acquainted. Also, like while they do know English, there's still somewhat of a language barrier, I guess, because
Yeah.
their primary language isn't English, right? They use English more to just like adapt to speaking to me. And
Hmm.
then like my minority is not anywhere near their level, so I have to use English
Yeah.
every once in a while
Yeah.
in conversation. And so because of that, it's just I don't feel comfortable. They're kind of like forcing conversation with me, and it's
Oh,
okay. It's like that, but it is a weird situation to navigate.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same with me, I guess, with my family because they're on like totally opposite sides of the earth.
Yeah,
And they're
literally.
all of them are older than me except on both my mom and dad's side, except for two of them. So, yeah, it's like weird because you sort of envy like what you were saying, like that dynamic of like your cousins being your friends and stuff like that. Because also like what you said, they all grew up together. and they all have memories of them being together. And oftentimes, like, I feel excluded, like, whether it be intentionally or unintentionally, because we're their family, but it's like not.
You just haven't spent time with them, though.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of hard in that way, I
Yeah.
guess. Um, I got well, some of my responses were the same as yours that I
Mhm.
got from that. So are there any
I
like
thought
other notable ones?
posture was interesting. I think we could discuss that.
That was interesting. I was
I
like,
didn't. I would not have thought of that, but it's valid. Like I definitely change my posture depending on who I'm with.
is that? I mean, I'm guessing she means like, or what she meant was like literal posture, but is there like a different? Does does
I
that
mean,
even make
there's
sense? Like emotional posture? Like does that
composture, like
is that just
composture.
confidence? Wait, is that just
Yeah,
confidence?
I guess.
Oh no.
I guess so.
Oh.
But even in terms of like literal posture, right? I say I change it. Like in front of elders or
Oh
like when
yeah.
I'm around adults, we sit up
Yeah.
nice and straight.
Yeah. Um.
If there's someone
And
I'm interested in, I also
oh.
sit up nice and straight.
Hmm.
But
But
like
yeah.
if again, I think that comes with like the level of comfort. If I'm comfortable with you, I will slouch. But it
It's
isn't something I thought of until they brought it up. I was like, well, yeah, I
yeah.
do actually.
Like but aside from like posture, I guess now that I think about it, like um I wonder because yeah, I say that I'm critical of like, you know, that like the way I physically am now. I wonder how much like going in going back into an area like school or in public with the mentality that at some point I took into account what other people thought of me. Like how would I wonder how I would like think about it then? Because now that that thought has been brought up, like I wonder if I'm going to be more self-conscious of things like my posture or things like what I wear and whatnot. I don't know. Now that I think about it, because I've been out of like the public for so long. Like what
Right.
happens when I go back? you know?
Right. No, I feel that. Again, I think for me it works kind of in the opposite way. Like I feel more judged when I'm around people. I'm critical of myself, obviously, but like I think I'm less critical of myself when I'm by myself because
Yeah.
there's less to hide. You know, I think my biggest issue is I try to present myself in a way that's favorable to others. Um, Especially like in school and stuff because I've known these people for so long. Oh, this is an interesting point. Sorry. But like
No, you're
um
good. You're good.
I think because I've known these people for so long, especially in like high school and stuff, like we've gone to the same middle school, some of us same elementary
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Um I feel the need or I feel obligated to kind of tether myself onto a past version of myself or like maintain that sort of
Huh.
persona, if that makes sense. Like I feel obligated to act the same bubbly and like cheerful way that I used to in middle school because that's how people know me, right? Like I can't suddenly just like switch it up
yeah.
and show a completely new side or whatever. I mean, I could, but
Yeah.
it would be a little weird considering
Yeah.
the dynamics that are already established and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so I think with quarantine, I'm able to just be myself, like not holding on to being whatever I was back then or some like
Yeah.
maintaining
Yeah.
consistency or anything like that. Like I can just do whatever and no one's here to be like, Sonika, why? Right?
Why?
So for me, it's more of like, am I going to maintain this new self that I'm letting myself be once we
Mhm.
start going back out into the public, or am I going to revert back to how I'd
Right.
present myself beforehand, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's a good thing about college, fresh start, right?
That's true. But
Yeah,
like
I could.
every year, sort of what you were saying about like maintaining a past self, like every year I look back on the year before and I'm like, wow, I did such cringy things. Like,
Right.
you can't like escape that. So I feel like in college I am really excited to, be more myself and whatnot, but I'm wondering like what you said, how much of my old self am I going to maintain like unintentionally?
Hmm.
Because there are things that you do and mannerisms that you have that no matter what, like are gonna
They're
follow
part of
you.
you. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
like whether we like it or not,
That's
they're
just,
always
yeah,
there.
it's
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
All right.
This is like kind of hard to talk about, not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
it is.
Because like
Mm,
it's not something you consciously think about. I mean, sometimes you
it's
do, but
something you have to like really dig up from the bottom of
yeah, from the
your
past,
subconscious.
not the
Yeah.
past.
No, but okay, wait. I guess in response to what you were saying about the cringy stuff, there is a tweet that's been going around, and it
Oh,
was like, he was saying how like when you look back at your past self, it's actually it's proof that you've improved as a person because you wouldn't think something's cringy unless you've progressed past that. And so it's like a
that's
weirdly
true.
self-affirming type of thing. Like, oh, at least
Yeah.
I was cringy as heck last year, but at least that means I'm better now.
Yeah, yeah. And it's encouraging because it shows that, well, yeah, it's encouraging because like no matter what happened at that time, like there's going to be something bigger and unintended for you out there in the future.
Hmm.
Um, there was some like, sometimes like when you're just sitting around at home and you just remember something so embarrassing that you just
Oh
have to
my
like,
God, yeah, and you just,
no,
I
that
hate
happens
that.
all
I
the time.
really hate when that happens.
But like, at the moment you think it's like the end of the world,
Right.
like in that moment, but like there's always another like the more I think about it, things that were embarrassing to me, people probably don't care about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like you've just progressed so far in your life that like if
Those
I
people
barely
matter.
remember it, then they probably barely remember it too. Like
Mhm.
yeah. It's sort of encouraging for me if you think about it like that.
Yeah. I had something to say. Something came up in my brain and then I interrupted
Yeah.
myself. Um,
Oh.
let's see. It was, oh, okay, yeah. So, kind of on the note of like self-perception and like cringing at our past selves. Um, I don't know. I've been thinking like what's society's obsession with like presenting ourselves as perfect? Like why do we as people feel so obligated to have to show people like the absolute best version of myself? Like I can't show you any mistakes, any embarrassing moments, anything wrong. You're not allowed to know that anything's going on with me. I am the epitome of like a human. I am
Yeah.
the child of God. Like why are we like that?
um like my my first like response that popped up in my head was like, oh, we just want people to love us, I guess. Like um for me, I guess when I present like a perfect version of myself, it differs. That's kind of tying back to the topic again. It differs per person.
Mhm.
Um, if it's someone that I've just met, then obviously I'm not going to try and be sort of unhinged. But if it's someone I know, it's more that like I don't want to ruin a friendship or a relationship with that person.
Mhm.
I guess that's like the first thing I thought of.
I I think that goes back to where it's like to an extent it's normal because again, if you want to get along with someone, at least initially, you'd want to present a side of yourself that like appeals to them most. But oh my God, is that fungus? No, okay. I thought there was fungus on my plant. I was about to scream.
Oh,
No, we're
that's all
good.
good. Okay.
No, but yeah, I think it's normal to an extent. But then it gets a little more tricky when you get to know people a little better. Like I feel, especially because our school is so competitive, I constantly felt obligated to present like this absolute best version of myself. And I felt the need to like one up myself in comparison to others. Like, oh, they may have
Oh
done
yeah,
this,
for
but I
sure.
do this. I'm good at
Oh yeah,
this, you know?
definitely. Yeah.
Like why?
I don't know. But I
I'm
think that's
trying
also
to unlearn that because it ties into like being competitive, right? But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to unlearn that. Like, I'm just gonna vibe, and if people
yeah,
want to be
yeah.
spectators, then sure. Like, I have
Yeah.
nothing to prove to y'all.
Yeah. Um, because I guess like high school is like a level playing field. Like everyone's kind of doing the same thing because there aren't as many outlets to like express yourself
It's
as
falling
there
again.
are.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what's up with that.
Sorry, keep going.
No, you're good. As there are in college.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess that's also sort of like where lying comes in. Like, I lied a lot because when you brought up like one-upping yourself, wanting to be sort of on the same like playing field as everyone else, I did that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would lie about my grades. I would lie about how well I did on an AP exam. Like, for what? Like
Yeah,
if
like why? First of all, why do
because
they care to ask? They're only
yeah, I
asking
mean,
you because they also want to feel better about themselves, and they also want to
yeah,
present this ideal version of themselves, however mean it
which
may
I
be
get,
that they're
right?
trying to do so through making you look bad. But still, like their purpose is the same. Both of y'all are trying to
Right,
look perfect to the next person.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like such a shame because like even if I told people that I was failing or that I was not really failing, but I was doing bad in class, or if I like for the longest time I told people I like it's such a stupid thing to lie about, but like for the longest time I told people that I passed my physics AP. Like when I didn't. But looking back, like if I told them I failed, would they care? No, I mean they'd just be like, "Oh, that's too bad." And then
Mm-hmm.
move.
And if
But it's
they care, then like that's on them. Why are they judgmental?
exactly like
Yeah.
it's sort of what we were saying at what you were saying at the beginning about like the more you try to, I guess, I don't know how you phrased it, but it's like emotionally draining. Like the
Mm-hmm.
more
The
you
more you
keep
try
up,
to prove yourself.
right. Like a facade that, like, honestly, it's a facade that I created.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, this person must think of me this way, or oh, this person will think I'm stupid if I say this or that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, um,
If they really care that much, then it's not your fault. It's their problem.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
something that doesn't like. It's not. It's not something I could control anymore. Like it's over. There are so many other things out there. So yeah, I mean, oh, but thinking about it now, actually, like I wonder if like self-deprecation in terms of like humor, like actually kind of ties into the way you sort of present yourself in front of people, like how
Oh,
much or
yeah.
how you tend to do that. Because I know we talked about this at some point.
We
I don't
did
know in
last
what
week.
context.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it sort of ties into again like comfort and because I feel like people that would sort of say those things would be people that I was or that confided in me for things. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that was sort of the tendency for that anyway. That makes,
Right.
yeah.
So, like, what you're saying is like self-deprecation is also, in a way, a form of like seeking validation, seeking sympathy.
Yeah, kind of, but like you don't do it with everybody. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like
You
I
only
feel
do
like
it to some people. Right. I
yeah.
can see that. Like whenever you were in your like self-deprecating mindset, I was too at one point. This isn't like, but
Yeah.
yeah. Whenever you were also in that habit, I don't know. Just out of curiosity, like who would you turn to? Because for me, I would be more self-deprecating towards people I'm trying to impress, which sounds like counterproductive. Like why would I put
No,
myself down
I
for
get it.
the
Yeah.
people I want to look better in front of? But that for whatever reason, that was my target audience for my self-deprecating jokes.
I would just do it with people that would also do it because I would
That
be
too.
like, "Oh, I don't feel alone." But instead of saying like, "Oh, I'm bad at oh, again, this is so dumb. I can't believe I worried about this. Like,
I
oh,
know.
I'm so bad at algebra." Like, or I'm so bad at chem. And people would be like, "Yeah, I'm so bad too." Like, instead of saying that, I think, should have said something like, "Oh, I'm really struggling with chem, like it's so hard."
I'm
Or
working on it. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
No, I totally
more
get it.
positive things.
Hmm.
Because then I think it like the things you say are super important. Like it draws other like-minded people to you
Hmm.
that feel like they can confide in the same things. And so
Exactly.
I think yeah, I don't know if I told you about this person, but like yeah, I knew someone who was like that. And like she constantly I mean not hung around me. She wasn't clingy or anything, but confided in me these things that once I grew out of my self-deprecating mindset, like I was still reminded of because she was just constantly there, you know?
I get that. As I said,
Yeah.
most of my friends are younger than, not most of my friends, but like I don't have a lot of friends that are older than me, right? Either they're my age or younger. And so I'm seeing a lot of my younger friends are still in that self-deprecating mindset, and I'm like, y'all need to stop now. It's not good
Yeah.
for you.
Because I used to think like the phrase "oh, it gets better" was so stupid. Like my parents would tell me
Does it
this.
really?
It
No,
was
but it
really a hard
does.
time. It does. Like not it doesn't get great. Like yeah, stuff is still difficult, but
But that's
like
life. Like it's not
yeah,
going to be perfect because then like what are you working towards?
exactly. Like no matter how much you change what you do, like you're always going to be you. You're always going to have that mark on your past, but like life is so much bigger than being 18, 17, 16 years old. Like it's
Being
so much
edgy and
bigger.
sad. Like
Exactly. What's the point of
get over
that?
yourself. Yeah.
I mean, unless maybe you actually have a problem, but if like it's something
Okay,
as
yeah. It's
trivial.
not to like invalidate actual
Exactly,
problems, but
exactly.
still, even if you have a problem, there's healthy ways to meander or like cope
Yeah.
with them.
And admitting you
Self-deprecation is
need
not
help, so important.
yeah.
That was something I never did. Like that would have
Mhm.
gotten me out of self-deprecation so fast.
If I
Because
just talk to someone, yeah, for real.
if you like put up like, yeah, I'm doing great right now. Like I'm good with physics, I'm good with chem, like whatever. It would have helped if I were just courageous enough to ask for help and yeah,
I
at the
agree.
end of it, it's that.
You live and
Yes, you do.
learn.
Before we get into deep questions with friends, we'd like to share with you guys our song of the week, a little something we're implementing to connect to this week's topic. This week we chose Good as Hell by Lizzo, a bold, powerful, and fun anthem about the importance of being yourself and owning it. We'll be back to Armbridge after the break.
I do my hair toss, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? Hair toss, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? Woo, child, tired of the bullshit. Gone, dust your shoulders off. Keep it moving, yes, Lord. Trying to get some new shit in there. Swimwear, going to the pool shit. Come now, come dry your eyes. You know you a star, you can touch the sky. I know that it's hard, but you have to try. If you need advice, let me simplify. If he don't love you anymore, just walk your fine ass out the door. I do my hair talk, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? Hair talk, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? Feeling good as hell. Baby, how you feeling? Woo, girl, need to kick off your shoes. Gotta take a deep breath, time to focus on you. All the big fights, long nights that you've been through. I got a bottle of tequila I've been saving for you. Boss up and change your life. You can have it all, no sacrifice. I know we did you wrong, we can make it right. So go and let it all hang out tonight. Cause he don't love you anymore. So walk your fine ass out the door. And do your hair talk, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? Hair talk, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? Hair talk, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? And we gon' be all hair talk, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? Yeah. Alright. Listen, if he don't love you anymore, then walk your fine ass out the door. And do your hair talk, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? Hair talk, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? Hair talk, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? And we gon' make it right. Hair talk, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? Feeling good as hell. Baby, how you feeling?
But it seems like we are at that time again. That special time at the end. Deep questions with friends, everybody. Yay. Tiny claps. Alright.
Tiny claps.
Tiny claps.
Yes. We should
All
create an intro for this. I feel like we don't hype it up enough. This is like
I need to add like sound effects or
yeah,
something. I don't know.
like a guitar riff or like
Just like a totally unrelated sound. Like, what is this? It's deep
duck
questions with
or
friends.
quack.
Alrighty,
We
I'll try to.
censor everything with like duck noises, with like quacks.
Yeah,
We should
Just like a-
incorporate ducks into this too.
Yes, I will think about it when I edit this later.
If any of our listeners made it this far, please give us suggestions.
Yes, please.
Our like average watch time on YouTube's 2 minutes, and it just hurts so much.
Yeah, I was like, do just click on it, because I feel like half of it is like the clickbait titles.
Yeah.
Half of it is we're not even because I think like at least yeah, because our Megan Thee Stallion video has a ton of views.
Yeah.
The one I think yeah, yours has a lot too because of like ASMR is in there.
Actually, mine was like the least viewed. I think
Oh,
ASMR is not fit
it's
for
not as
our
trending.
audience.
Because mine I think like when I did my solo episode there's like a slang term in there like poggers, which is apparently really popular with the gaming community. So
Oh,
like
we love
I just
that.
imagine like someone clicking on one of our episodes and being like, "Huh, this isn't this has nothing to do
Yeah.
anything."
It'd be like that though.
It do be like that.
Oh my God, I searched existential questions and then they gave me an article called Existential Depression in Gifted Individuals.
No.
Don't start this.
I'm just getting over that part of my life, dude. I am getting over it.
Yes, we are. I saw the article title and I was like,
I do not see it. I do not.
I pretend to not see.
Yes. I love those memes.
It's so funny.
Yes. Okay, do you want to go first or should I go first?
You can go ahead.
Okay, I'm just gonna scroll and then stop randomly.
These are so
Okay.
good. Oh my God, I'm like losing my
Ooh.
mind.
Yeah, these are so good. Okay.
I'm bookmarking this page. There's a
Same,
whole
same.
lot we can use on here.
Okay. Does utilizing time properly make our lives meaningful and happy?
I think so. I would think so, at least like from my current experience. Yes. Because properly is entirely subjective, right? It just
Right.
it depends on what you think fits the definition of proper, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, I know that when I spend a ton of time on my phone, I feel poopy afterwards because that was not the best use of my time.
Yeah.
But it's also situational. Like I could have worked my butt off for the entire day and like working any more past that limit would not be proper anymore. And being on my phone and just relaxing and like looking at memes, that could be proper in that situation. So yeah, I think that is what makes our life meaningful, I guess. Because again, it's about the balance that you need to achieve. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
What about you? What do you think?
I think it's something that I have to start like valuing because even though like we're in a situation where like this limbo between like high school and college, there's really nothing to do. Like I'm starting to realize how valuable like my time is, and especially since like school has been cut short and stuff. So I think time management is important because it helps you fit in all the things you wish you could have done.
Yep.
I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. This one is, I had like a whole discussion with my parents about this like last month, and so I have a very clear answer on this that I'll give after I ask it and after you answer. But does fate exist? Does fate exist? Like fate, destiny, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I gotcha. I think it does. I feel like it does because sort of like what we were talking about before, like things that you think won't work out, like they always find a way of doing so, at least in my experience. Also like people that I've met are just kind of relating to our last episode. I've had friends that like no matter what, like we've met through weird circumstances or we don't even know how we met, but despite that, like we're still like friends, we're still together, we still have things in common. And I think like the things that I'm grateful for just happened. Like I wasn't grateful for them at the time, but then like now I am, I guess.
Because that was in your fate.
That's just how it meant to be. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
I did not believe in it. I was like, how? Like, how could you believe in something arbitrary that hasn't happened yet and like whatnot, right? But think of like when my parents explained it to me and it was like in a way that kind of clicked. Right as I said clicked, my wrist popped. The timing of that was
Great.
it was perfect.
Amazing.
It clicked.
Oh.
But no, yeah. So the way I thought of it is like fate is bound to happen in the future. Like whatever needs to happen will eventually happen, right? So it's kind of I don't know how to word this in a way that like makes good sense because I wrote about it in my journal, but it was like a whole page, and I don't have time for a whole page. But whatever needs to happen will eventually happen, and it will meet at that like point, that singular event, right? And everything you're doing right now and everything you will do leading up to that moment will influence it, which will leave you with only one outcome, which is that result, right? So that is in your fate, whether it's good or bad, whatever, right? But it's also not worth, like for me, the reason I was so skeptical is because I was like, so then why do we spend so much time like worrying about our fate? And like we all, okay, like if something's in our fate, why do we spend so much time working towards it? Or why do we spend so much time stressing over it?
Yeah, I got you.
For our listeners, Chelsea just got a nice hug.
From my dad. Going to work.
But yeah, so I'd be like, why do we spend all this time like working towards our goals and stuff if it's all like in our fate? But our fate is like the accumulation of our actions in a given time frame, right? So whatever's meant to happen at that end goal will happen depending on what you do, but it's also inevitable because whatever you do will lead up to that one singular moment, if I'm making sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I do believe in fate, but I don't think it's something like, oh, this person is in my destiny or blah, blah, blah. Like if they are, they are. I'm not going to like
romanticize it?
Yeah, I'm not going to romanticize it. It is what it is. And there's
Right.
no point in like stressing over it.
Yeah. It's a nice thing to like hope for, you know, like like I wonder what will happen. It's like a nice introspective way to think about
It is,
the future.
yeah. I mean, obviously having goals and dreams is nice, but I think fate is more objective than we make it out to be.
Right. And if you have like a mishap in your life, it's like, oh well, that's something I have to overcome, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I guess I have to overcome it. Like, okay.
All right, your turn.
Are beliefs and superstitions the same?
I think the connotation is what differentiates them. Like, beliefs have a more positive connotation versus superstitions. Not really. Like, they're more negative, right? And I think superstitions are also more, like, irrational, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like beliefs are backed up with more morality and ethics. And, like, I don't know, let's say I believe in... What do I believe in? No, like, I don't know. I believe in free speech. Like, if I were to say that, that's backed by, like, morality and ethics. Like, I believe people should be able to express themselves the way they want. Therefore, I believe in giving people free speech. I mean, that's a whole other, like, thing if we want to make it political. But from a strictly, like, moral, philosophical standpoint, yes. Versus superstitions, at least in the context I've heard them in, they're more like irrational. It's like, if I don't touch this step before I go to my exam, I will fail the test. Like, it's not really backed by anything. It's just something we say to make ourselves scared into doing things. At least that's the connotation I've heard it in. So that's what I think.
And I guess like sort of when you mentioned like, oh, the step example, like that eventually turns into a belief, right? Like if a superstition works for you, or if it has come true at some point, then in that case, I guess it could evolve into a belief because it's like you saw it, you saw evidence like come true.
Yeah, it's backed by something. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Oh, this one's kind of like really, really dark, but.
Oh, all right.
Do I want to do? Will racism cease to exist?
Well,
that's really hard to answer.
I don't think so, because like no matter what, because even like small things can be considered, I guess, quote unquote racist in a way. Like sometimes I have like subconscious like, oh, that's how this person is regarding this, but I'm quick to be like, oh no, like I don't actually feel that way.
It's so internalized too.
Yeah, it is. So, I mean, even if you are that sort of person who's like, okay, I'm gonna get over that, like, it's still there. Like, it still exists. Like,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean you yourself are a racist person. It just means, like, it's just
That
something
is a
that has
belief
been
that you've
a
been
part of society.
fed.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think as long as we, like, maintain the idea that those stereotypes exist, then I don't think it will be necessarily over. I mean, maybe it'll be, like, overcome in the sense like we start to think, okay, I shouldn't think that way, but it's still going to exist somewhere in the subconscious, if that makes sense.
I agree.
Yeah.
For your racism one, yeah, I think I agree with it. Like, as long as the idea is presented to people, as long as that idea is like there in the collective conscience, it racism will be there in society. So,
Right.
unfortunate, but it be like that.
Is human potential capable of anything?
Like,
I don't know what
what
they
are
mean by that was the question. If is human potential capable of anything? I guess like if
so like
like let's
what
say
are the
you
limits
see
of
potential in someone, is that something that can viably like can their potential alone like produce anything? I guess that's kind of how the question
I
works.
think the way I interpret it is like more of what are the limits of human capabilities, or like is there any limit to human capability?
Yeah.
This is supposed to be a fast response, like I'm not supposed to think too much, but like, oh God. I don't think so. I mean, I think humanity as a whole, like as a species, we will end before we can reach the highest of our potential, if that makes sense. Like I think
Yeah.
our potential is limited to our conscience, right? Like if we want to get really, really like philosophical and scientific, we are confined to human mindset, right? If we were to meet some aliens, like there's some pretty good odds that they can think thoughts that like we just cannot process.
Yeah.
Like if I were to give like a more scientific analogy, you know, like color, right? Color is
Mhm.
a wavelength of light that we can process as human beings, right? Anything past that, we just can't see it unless it's translated into a color depiction that we can process, right? So like similarly, I guess, or no, color is not really the best example because like as I said, you could adapt it in a way that we could process it. I think sound is
Yeah.
a better example. You know, like with sound, we can only hear between like 20, is it 20 hertz and like 10,000
I don't know.
something? I don't know, man. But we have a limited range as to like how much we can hear.
Yeah.
And anything past that, like we just cannot process it. Like we physically cannot comprehend it, or what it sounds like. So I feel like our thoughts, our capability, our potential is confined to our conscience and like the scope of like
Yeah.
what we can, which is still very like broad. And I think it's infinite in its own way, but there's still a lot of stuff that just because of the way our mind is built, it can't do anything because we don't even know what that anything is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was super unnecessarily deep, but like.
No, but I mean that's your answer, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that one's good. I like that one. This is an amazing website. I am in love.
This is the best website.
Okay, and now my question, that'll be the last one, right?
Yep.
Oh, this one's kind of sad. Is it easier to love or be loved?
Oh, is it easier to love or be loved? Let's see. Because like I guess being loved is hard to gauge. So like loving people is like easier because I think you sort of see things in them that I mean if you love someone, you see things in that person that other people don't, I guess. And that's like probably specific to you. You know, like the reasons why I like a specific person, not necessarily romantically, can be different from the reasons like you like a person or anyone likes a person. But it's nice to like sort of project your like, you know, idea of them onto them, and then that's the version that you like. Because everyone has like different versions they show to different people. So I guess it would be easier to say that it's easier to love somebody because it's like your definition of it and whatnot.
I
Yeah.
think that's cool. Yeah, I like that answer.
Alrighty, cool.
Hey, would you like to read the outro?
Yes. We're gonna finish up, everyone. Again, everyone, what started in quarantine has now come to a non-temporary end. A huge thank you, again, goes out to our friends who submitted some great responses for our 6th episode. We also want to thank allocation.com for providing us with some really, really great philosophical questions to end off our ending segment. We hope you continue to join us every Tuesday at 5 p.m. for more advice and overall shenanigans. Until next time, this is the Armbridge Podcast. All right.
Yay!